Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Happy New Year, and welcome to the first January meeting of SPSA for 2026, January 28th. Call the meeting to order. And I guess the first thing we would do would all rise and have the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic, and one nation, God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. So, Madam Secretary, do we have a quorum?
Yes, we do.
Do we have anybody participating electronically?
Richard Broad should be electronically. Mr. Broad?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Broad, could you state your location and the reason for participating virtually?
Certainly. 248 Cardinal Lane, Whitestone, Virginia, 22578. Icy Roads.
Icy Roads. So I thought the Director of Public Works would have all that under control.
It is ironic.
Sorry, Richard, I
control
couldn't.
the county
I just
up
couldn't
here.
pass. Fully understand, Richard. So, has anybody signed up for public comment?
No one has registered to make a comment in person or electronically.
All right, thank you. Well, let's move on then. Have just a couple of comments. The first thing I'd like to know, advise everybody is that as everybody knows, we had a lot of board members leave, and that included many members on the executive committee. And so there's been I've reappointed or appointed some members on the executive committee. I wanted to review that with everybody. The executive committee now constitutes myself from Virginia Beach, Lynette Lowe from Southampton, Richard Broad from Norfolk, and Al Moore from Suffolk. And there still is one spot available, and I'm certainly willing to entertain any volunteers, anybody who's interested, if you get up with me. I will say that just like today, this meeting once a month takes pretty much the whole morning, and sometimes a little later than that. The executive committee takes another meeting. It's usually the Wednesday preceding the board meeting, and so that takes 2 meetings a month. So if you're interested on being on the executive committee and like to throw your name in the ring, let me know. But just to be aware that we'll go from 1 meeting a month, which takes up most of the morning, to 2 meetings a month. But I would look forward to hearing from any of you. So we do have many new board members, and I wanted to introduce them to the board. I'll start, I guess, alphabetically, but Michael Stanton is our new governor appointee, and he is a retired captain from the U.S. Navy and currently president of BCA Consulting. Mr. Stanton, welcome. We look forward to working with you. From Norfolk, we have Richard Broad. He was formerly the ex officio member for Norfolk, but he is now the governor appointee, and Richard is the director of public works for Norfolk. We have Maurice Person. Sorry. He was formerly Norfolk's alternate, but he's now Norfolk's ex officio member on the board. And Maurice is the assistant superintendent of waste administration. Welcome. And Clarence Bullock from Norfolk. Is Clarence here? Pardon? Okay. Clarence is the new alternate board member, and he is the collection supervisor for the Waste Administration Department in Norfolk. Moving on to Portsmouth, we have William Moore. Now, does you go by William or Bill? Go by Bill. Bill Moore. William Bill Moore. He is the new governor appointee for Portsmouth. Bill is retired as the director of the Quality Assurance Department for the Norfolk Naval Shipyard. So I understand you are a nuclear engineer. Got a lot of engineers on the board. This is a good thing. A lot of engineers on the board. This is very, very good. We also have Burl Stromberg from Portsmouth, and he is returning for another stint as Portsmouth's ex officio board member, and he is the Assistant City Attorney for Portsmouth. Welcome back, Burl. And last and certainly not least, we have Suffolk, Al Moore. Al was a previous board member as the ex officio member for Suffolk, but he is now the new governor appointee. And Al is retired as Suffolk city manager after 4 decades in government service, starting in Norfolk and finishing in Portsmouth. And Al also an engineer. I said Suffolk, excuse me. Stupid computers. And Al also is an engineer. So we welcome you, welcome your valuable experience and your knowledge. And I'm also somewhat pleased, I guess a little selfishly, that many of the new board members are some returning members with experience, because it had weighed heavily on my mind in the last couple of months that we had that perhaps as much as half the board was going to leave and be replaced with brand new people. And that was at a time when I thought we were going to have a number of very critical and important decisions in January. But as it turns out, thanks to the jurisdictions, our members themselves, our board members, and our staff, it was all wrapped up in December. And you'll hear a little bit more about that today, the successes we had today. Anyway, welcome everybody, and we look forward to working with you. A final update on the board members. We're still looking, Chesapeake and Franklin are still looking to fill their governor-appointed board members. The next issue would be the trash bash. That is scheduled for this Saturday, January 31st. We're obviously monitoring the weather very, very closely, but I will tell you, except for today, which is going to have a high of a balmy 33, for the next 5 days, there is no high that is above freezing, and lows are in the 20s and teens, and that is continuous for the next 5 days. The weather report that I saw as I was walking out the door says there's a high probability of snow Saturday night and Sunday morning in the early AMs particularly. Inland, they're talking anywhere from 3 to 6 inches. Here on the coast, 6 to 8 inches. This is one of your typical where your nor'easter comes up the coast, collides with this super cold air. It's the type of system that has, when it has happened, doesn't happen often, but when it has happened, it usually brings a lot of snowfall to the area. So as you can imagine, we have a great concern about the trash bash this weekend. We think it's certainly possible quite a few members will not show up. And it's also possible that those who do will be putting themselves in a little bit of harm's way and taking risks to do that. So we haven't made the decision yet. That's certainly technically it's the staff's decision, but you might have an idea about where we may be headed. That's all I have in terms of comments. I guess the next thing would be to approve the minutes. The minutes were distributed earlier by our board secretary, and I hope you all had a chance to review them. I've certainly reviewed them and found them in order. And if there are no changes or comments, I'd like to ask for a motion and a second to approve the minutes. I will point out, I was advised that even if you weren't here for that particular board meeting, you do not have to abstain. You can actually vote to approve the minutes. I say that because I'm a little concerned about whether or not we would have enough votes to approve the minutes. I will tell you, and I think the board members who are here will tell you, that it is a long tradition of accurate minutes, and I don't recall, at least in the 4 or 5 years I've been here, I don't recall a motion to approve the minutes ever failing, ever going anything other than unanimous with maybe one abstention. So At that point, I'd entertain a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Anybody? Oh, okay, I had a motion from Mr. Stromberg to approve and a second from Ms. Lowe. Are there any additional discussions, changes? All right, if not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Mr. Broad?
Aye.
Aye. Are there any abstentions or any opposed? All right, the motion's carried. Thank you very much. This meeting is moving along quite well. I would like to say that's the way they're all going to be, but it doesn't normally work out that way. But we do have a short meeting today. So at this point, I'll turn the meeting over to our executive director for some updates. He has some very important ones and some really great news to share with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You stole some of my thunder. Last year's meetings typically ran till 12:30, 1 o'clock or later, and we had a lot of closed sessions. And this is going to be quite a short meeting compared to what we've been used to over the last 12 months. But hopefully, we'll get back in the swing of less time spent at these meetings. First item is I wanted to also welcome all the new board members. One of the things that we have planned for you is on February the 25th, we're planning a board orientation. Take between 2.5 hours, and it will follow a regular, or at the end of our regular meeting in February. We will provide lunch to the board members and alternates and staff who's here to making the presentations. If you have special dietary needs, please let Deborah know. Board members who have been on the board, she already knows those, but if you're a new board member and you have dietary restrictions, please let Deborah know so she can order your lunch accordingly. And also, just to make sure we have everybody, if you would RSVP to Deborah that you'll be here for that board orientation and lunch, so she can make sure she orders for everyone. And then additional notice we'll give you again previous to the 25th when you get your minutes. The first item, update item that I wanted to bring to you is the Waste Supply and Service Agreement contract update. Acceptance testing started yesterday. It runs through tomorrow. The first day of testing was very good. I'm going to report some more on that in just a few minutes. But the first major milestone for the contract is this acceptance test that's going on currently. The second milestone would come in July of this year when they ramp up to a second shift, but that may come sooner than we expected because second shift was there yesterday during our acceptance test for the first milestone. Work at the Victory facility is underway and pretty much on schedule. I understood yesterday that AMP has ordered some of the longer lead time equipment for the Victory Boulevard facility, so that's good news. SPSA has reviewed copies of the offtake agreements now for the carbon credits, and the agreements have been finalized with their third party that AMP is using to buy those credits. And AMP has an official ribbon cutting ceremony set for April the 2nd. Each of you will be invited. I hope you will attend that. It's going to be quite the event, I understand. We'll give you more information as that comes available. I think Zach is meeting with AMP staff this week to discuss some more details about invitations and that sort of thing, but this is going to be a big deal. First day of testing, you have in front of you a copy of the official document that's required under the WSSA that AMP provides us. As late as 11 o'clock last night, I was on the phone with our engineers who have confirmed their agreement with that report, so I felt comfortable providing that report to you today. The second day of testing is underway. Kevin Pavich from AMP is here. He just told me that things are moving smoothly today, just like they did yesterday, so hopefully this will continue, but this is the first day of testing. We brought in 173.8 tons of waste to the facility. That was part of the contract number that was required for acceptance testing. We deducted 0.125 tons. That's not what's considered non-processable waste that was not included in the inbound test numbers as we go forward. The total organics removed from the 173.88 tons was 74.81 tons, or 43% of the total waste volume was organics. The total quantity of recyclables that were recovered was 46.14 tons, and that's 26% of the total waste stream. Now, those two numbers are important because the contract guarantees 30% removal of organics and 20% of recyclables, and you can see in both of those they've went well past that. The total residue from the yesterday's work was 52.8 tons, so that's 30% residual. I think the official number of tons that were diverted from the landfill was 69.8, but the 30% residue is in line with that, with some of the rounding of the numbers. And the total diversion rate was 69.61%, and the total performance of processing was 99%, which is almost unbelievable. And the test results you have every downtime that went yesterday when they pulled a truck out and put another truck in, it's reported at the bottom. I think there was one stoppage all day. Is that right, Kevin? So the system operated for 99% of the day, and that's pretty much unheard of. If you can get 75% in typical processing facilities, you've done pretty good, and it's because of the process that AMP uses is why they're able to reach 99%. So as the next 2 days testing goes on, I'll also provide that information to you, but we have no reason to believe that it's not going to continue just like it did yesterday. At this time, I'd ask Zach to come up, and he's going to brief you quickly on some of the strategic communication pieces that we're working on. This is something that we found more and more every day is going to be important to each one of the member communities as we begin to move down this road of alternative waste disposal, because we want to make sure that we are reinforcing that this is a transparent operation. Part of the problem with recyclables today is there's no, the citizens don't have any comfort level that what you say you're doing. So we've got some things in place, and Zach's going to talk about them to make sure that citizens can look at our website and tell exactly what's going on with their recyclables. And Zach, you want to go through that real quick?
Thanks, Dennis. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Zach. For all our new members, I'm PR manager for SPSA, and I'm tasked with doing a lot of that transformation, a lot of that messaging that is going to be very new for our residents in the coming years and decades as we take on this new disposal system. And so the big ongoing effort is that we've started partnering with cities of Portsmouth and Chesapeake, their comms people, their public works staff, and just figuring out those operational expectations that are going to be taking place and what residents are going to be hearing about, and that sort of communication effort. There are altogether, a lot of changes, so to speak, but it's really simplifying the process of making sure people can just throw something away and ensure that we'll take care of it responsibly from there. And in addition, we're going to be paid media opportunities. Those are going to be coming in March and April. And then I just want to give you a quick overview of a couple of months. So January, we had a couple subcommittee presentations. We did an AWD animation. I think some of you have possibly seen it, but it happened over the holidays. I don't think we've showed it at a board meeting yet. So the next slide, I just wanted to take you through that, and it'll just give us a good overview of the project. And so we've put that out. We've definitely gotten some visibility on that in the region, but there's still a lot of work we need to do in terms of spreading the word and getting people excited about this new system. And then we had one news interview, and we took part in one case study episode, and there'll be more of that as AMP is leading that case study. That'll be some very good content in the coming months. Looking forward to February, as Dennis mentioned, the acceptance tests are taking place right now, and we'll have a press release at the beginning of February. We'll also be launching a social media follower campaign to get some bigger exposure. And then our transparency dashboard is finally going to be in development in February. And so that's going to allow us, once that is released, that is going to allow us to share all of the data that we are doing at that AMP Frederick facility. We're going to be showing basically what Dennis just showed you in that previous slide, the recyclable percentages, the tons, the diversion, the organics, just breaking down everything that's coming through and everything that's eventually hitting the landfill. We just want to be able to share all that data with residents so that they know and can have confidence in this new system. And then March, April, that's when we'll be releasing that transparency dashboard. As Dennis mentioned, we'll have that ribbon cutting of the Frederick facility on April 2nd. And then we're really going to start almost hitting the road, going on tour, so to speak. There's a lot of conferences, thought leadership, and public presentations that are going to be taking place around that springtime. And that's about it for the overview. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has. We can also watch the animation video. That's just 40 seconds or so.
Zach, if I could just add one thing. These meetings with individual communities are very important. We learn a lot from them, kind of the questions that are coming from the member communities. And as we move forward, we want to make sure that we're answering those questions. And when you're being transparent, it opens the door for a lot of scrutiny on what you're doing. So knowing what your citizens are asking and the things that are important to your individual communities is helpful as we create the kind of the message that we're putting out, so we can make sure we try to answer those questions as part of our message. I know that last week Zach met with a group from Chesapeake, and it was on both sides, because Earl called me and said, hey, it was a really good meeting, and Zach came back and said it was a really good meeting. So a lot of the conversation that took place in that meeting, we're kind of trying to put together in a plan moving forward to present back to Chesapeake, and Chesapeake will have the final say on how we move forward with that. But it's important to make sure that when we're reaching out to your communities, that we have someone we can talk to that's in your community, because you know your communities better than anybody. So Zach, go ahead.
Yep, that's a great point. It's been so helpful meeting with people from Chesapeake and Portsmouth, and learning about everything going on with their operations. Certainly, we know a lot about the trash and some regional things, but as soon as we can communicate with you all, it helps out tremendously. So let's go through the animation here.
Residential trash is delivered to the sortation facility. The process begins with all waste, including bagged and non-bagged items, being put on a large conveyor belt. Trash bags are opened and oversized items are cut into smaller pieces. Next, the trash passes under a system of cameras and sensors that use AI to analyze the waste in real time. The technology can quickly identify materials and can recognize different types of plastics and metals. Materials are then sorted using a system of robotics and pneumatic jets. Materials continue to go through the sortation system, further refining and separating different types of materials. Sorted recyclable materials are then collected and bundled. Plastics and metals will be recycled into new items, and organics will become biochar.
So this is actually, as you can see, is animation, and it simplifies the process very much, so just that somebody can look at it and say, yeah, I kind of understand that. But if you really want to understand it, you got to go over to the facility. Starting in February, we'll be providing some tours of the facility. We have some scheduled already. I would love for each one of you to get to come over and see what's going on, because until you see this operating, it's really hard to understand the kind of technology that we're implementing in the waste business today. It's really unbelievable. So if you can plan sometime in February or March to visit the facility, I'll certainly work that out and take you on a tour personally.
Are there any questions for staff? Mr. Hughes?
When the talking points are all nailed down and you're at the point where you're ready, it'd be a great idea, I believe, to do a road trip back out to the councils. We did a lot of, this is what the plan is, this is where we're going, we've held votes, and now, you know, the results, I think, very beneficial.
I think that's a very good idea, and I really had not thought about that, but I think you're spot on with that, to stay engaged with the council so they understand what they've, you know, the positive portions of what they voted on. So thank you.
I had two minor comments. At the end, you mentioned that the organics are converted to biochar and then it just stops. You might want to add to be reused or sequestered. At some point, we need to explain, because we do have to admit that our process doesn't recycle cardboard. It tends to turn it back to biochar, which is either, again, reused in concrete or some other purpose, or sequestered to take that carbon off the environment. And then in a little bit of the animations, it almost looked like there was an electronic iPads or things like that on the conveyor belt. So you might want to look at that now and make sure that we weren't sending a message that we'd be disposing of electronic materials that way. Those two things I saw. On the good side, you know, by July, the Frederick facility alone, this is before any of the new facilities at the Victoria Boulevard site, would be doing 120,000 tons per year. That is 27% of the municipal waste of our 8 members. And if they hit just 20% as they're required by contract, and they're actually, as you can see on the test, they did more than that, that would be 24,000 tons per year of recycled metals and plastic. And I did a quick back of the envelope calculation that the 4 blue can systems that we were running were recycling about 20,000 tons per year. So just by July, that'll be an amazing increase in the amount of recycled material in the region. So congratulations to AMP, to staff, to the board, and to all the members who have made this happen.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is to discuss upcoming budget items. Wanted to first make sure that the board was understood the focus the staff has on this year's budget and accept any suggestions you may have. But their number one concern is increasing the reserves to cover the anticipated capital cost. One of the things that we've been battling has been the amount of money that we spent permitting cells 8 and 9. Originally in our original, this is not SCS's original estimate, but it was our previous engineering firm's estimate. There was only about $1.5 million included for permitting of cells 8 and 9 included in that, and that was mainly for purchase of wetland credits. We spent closer to $11 million, and you all have been through this with me, so you understand where that money came, why we had to spend that kind of money. Number one was we bought 2 pieces of property to preserve because there wasn't enough wetland credits in the bank for us to purchase. We purchased every wetland credit that was available in this HUC. There are none left for anybody else because we purchased them all until some more are included. We spent a fortune on wetland credits. And what started out as a $350,000 contract that we went into with the Army Corps of Engineers turned into about a $4 million contract because of all of the requests from all of the interested groups and the additional work that was included. It wasn't part of the original scope. And I brought that back to you every time we had an increase, and you all were well aware of that. Now we've got to focus on how do we recover that because we have closures coming up in the next several years. We want to get back to where we were. We've been putting away reserve money, but this year I think our budget focus needs to be to increase those reserves back to where we're comfortable that we have more than enough to make closures when we need them and expand when we need to expand. Right now, you're going to see the numbers that we have in reserves, but the money that's in reserves currently is going to be expended when we finish the flyover and when we finish the expansion of cell 7. So just keep that in mind. Also, as this budget cycle goes through, we're going to be redefining the expenses related to alternative waste disposal because a lot of the expenses that we currently have will be really converted to other expenses, and we need to identify those and be clear to you when we come back with our budget presentation of how alternative waste disposal has impacted our operating budget. The FY27 budget will include an increase in commercial rate. That increase in the commercial rate is needed because of increases in contract disposal price and contract hauling prices. We need to pass that on to our commercial customers. I've had conversations with a couple of commercial customers, and they understand that. I don't think it's going to be an issue because we're only going to be increasing it the amount of the contract increases that we've seen. And then the last item that I wanted to bring to you today is staff will be looking at increasing the number of contract commercial accounts we have. Contract commercial accounts are important to SPSA because they allow us to know how many commercial tons are going to come in, and it allows the more commercial tons that we have under contract, the better our negotiating position is with haulers and with third-party disposal. So we're looking at ways to do that, and we're looking at a tiered approach that right now, if a customer guarantees us they're going to bring us 30,000 tons, then they have a very low rate. If they don't guarantee the 30,000 tons, then their rate is like $79. So there's a big disparity between a contract commercial at $62 a ton and non-contract at $79 a ton. What we are planning to do is have a tiered approach. So instead of just having a 30,000 ton window, we'll have a 20,000 ton window. The price will be a little bit higher. Then we'll have a 10,000 ton window. It'll be a little bit higher than the 20,000 ton window. And then we'll have a non-contract price. So we're working actively with some private contractors to see how that might impact and looking at other prices at other landfills. We'll come back to you with our budget presentation with a 3-tier approach, a 30, a 20, and a 10,000 ton proposal. So just want to give you an update on some of the things that we're looking at. If there are any other things that the board would be interested in us bringing back to you as part of the budget proposal, we'll certainly do that. So one of the questions that you all have early on, because you're in the middle of your budget process, is what is our tip fee going to be? This is the projected 5-year tip fee, the $71 a ton. That is you already been told that before we went into the alternative waste disposal contract. But our tip fee this year will be $71 a ton. So you can, whoever's budgeting, you can make sure that that's the number that they're using. The other numbers that are projected are hard numbers. That's what the price will be moving forward. Leachate concentrator has been operating now for a month. Last month we gave you some preliminary numbers. This is a full month of leachate concentrator operation. The total throughput for the leachate concentrator for December was 1,461,930 gallons. The daily average was 48,731, and the weekly average is 341,117. The concentrator uptime was 645.2 hours, or 90%. And with that operation, we still pump and hauled 197,548 gallons. A lot of that has to do with heavy rainfall and some of the time the concentrator was down. We'll be able to improve that number as we move forward just by some corrections that we made. So we're on target with the concentrator. I think it makes a huge difference in our risk level for hauling leachate. We were hauling in the neighborhood of 900,000 gallons previous to this. So I think we're much better off now than we were previous to the concentrator coming online.
Dennis,
Yes,
can I ask a couple questions?
sure.
We have a permit to discharge some direct to HRSD, is that correct?
Not direct. It's got to be pump and hauled. Our direct pump, where we were pumping directly to the Nansemond plant,
Yeah.
that's been shut off.
I thought they gave us a nominal amount, like
No,
60,000 gallons.
there's no nominal amount. That's where they gave us $4 million for the concentrator to shut off that line.
Okay, I understand now. Okay.
And we still have a permit with HRSD, but we have to haul to the Chesapeake site and Newport News. Is that right, Mike? Newport News.
Okay, and that's the 197,
Yes.
548. Do we think that that number during most months is going to be closer to zero? Or do we,
I'm not sure it'll be close to zero, but it will be much lower than the 197.
okay.
And we'll keep you posted as we go through that.
Would a second unit have any effect? Or is it just not worth the cost?
No, I don't think it's worth the cost, really. Our risk level has gone down tremendously from this. That's like, it's 5,000 gallons per load is what we're hauling. So it's versus where we were, we're much better off. And at 100, this system cost us about $9 million total.
Yeah.
So the 197,000 gallons and spend another 9 million, I'm not sure is the answer. We are doing some other things as part of construction of Cell 7 that will help us, like expanding one of our leachate ponds. But
That's still 40 trucks, right? 40 trucks a
40,
month?
40 hauls, yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's still risk.
No doubt it's still risk.
Okay.
Dennis,
Yes, sir.
maybe didn't you mention that there's some plans to cover the leachate pond so that rainwater can be pumped off and as opposed to having to be treated?
Yeah, our engineers here, we're working through those plans currently. We don't have a final decision made, but we got a lot of options that we're looking at. Our engineering firm has given us a recommendation, will be giving us a recommendation on which one to go. One is to cover the ponds and extend and add another pond as part of Cell 7 construction, and that's likely where we're going to head.
For the benefit of the new board members, didn't HRSD pay for half of this facility?
Yes, sir. They paid up to $4 million, and it ended up being a little more than $8 million. So they paid the $4 million. And the reason why they were willing to pay the $4 million goes back to what Mr. Hansen said, and that is that we shut off all leachate going to the Nansemond plant. The Nansemond plant was a SWIFT plant, Strategic Water Initiatives for Tomorrow, where they're actually cleaning that material up, the waste material that comes in, and they're pumping it back in the aquifer. And the constituents that were in our leachate were problematic for them as they were pumping back in. It was costly and it was problematic because a lot of our leachate went at one time of the day. So they agreed to pay us $4 million to build this leachate concentrator if we would shut off all waste going to that plant. And that's the reason why this really went into place to begin with.
Dennis, I just want to want to make sure I understand correctly. This leachate treatment facility will need to last beyond the lifetime of the disposal at the landfill, though.
That's correct.
Yeah, so just for board members' awareness, this is something that we'll have to be able to keep this operational long after there's a landfill. I hope that we continue to look to see what other solutions might present themselves as we move forward. I mean, it'll be costly over the time of just to operate it, but if we think about this in perpetuity, that is a real liability for the landfill.
And to your point, it's really what we were paying HRSD for leachate treatment versus what we are paying now is pretty much a wash. It was not any savings because we've got chemicals we have to purchase, got maintenance on the machine, we've got an employee that we hired to operate. This is very maintenance, comprehensive maintenance is required nearly every day on it. So we're not saving dollars in terms of the concentrator. What we've done is we shed a lot of risk, and we've assured that we can manage our waste on site. Any other questions? So flyover update, the project is on budget. If you've been through there, you can see the progress is really moving forward quickly now. Traffic flow on 58 remains pretty good considering, all that's going on there. That's a lot of work across the very busy highway, and the speed limit reduction and the lane closures have pretty much become known to everybody. So when they approach that area, they're already doing what they're supposed to do. So we don't have a lot of issues there right now. It looks like that March will be the time when they clear the first lane closure. I had a meeting with VDOT yesterday. The eastbound lanes will be the first ones to be cleared, and they're looking at March, late March, early April to get that done. 60-inch stormwater pipe that went through in front of the landfill has been completed. The workers are preparing the bridge deck now for concrete, which is a big milestone in the project. And the change order that we agreed to that lowered the cost of the project by roughly $400,000. There was a low-density cellular concrete in place of the MSE walls. Placement on both the east and west bounds is nearing completion. They're covering that now with soil and some geomembrane, and starting to plant grass on the east side, nearest to the swamp, and on the opposite side they began to put some soil down at the base, and they're moving forward. We're trying to cover that. One of the things that we've been worried about all along is because the flyover is supposed to be open previous to any waste going into cell 7, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a second, and you'll see why it's so critical. The black line indicates the actual progress, the green line indicates the schedule, and the red line indicates 10% below schedule. Anytime the contractor on a VDOT project goes 10% below schedule, they have to have a work improvement plan put to VDOT, and VDOT has to approve it. VDOT did that when that black line fell below the red line, and their attempt was to get it back to the green line. And with the steel going across the highway, that was kind of the turning point when that line started going up. And now they're really on target with the projected schedule, and their projected completion date is May the 31st. I'm not sure that, I think that's a little overzealous. That puts them in their early completion mode so that they get that bonus for being completed early. I think it's more like a June 15th to June 30th completion, substantial completion date. And then final completion would be around December the 1st of this year. So they have gotten back on schedule. We reported a number of times they were below schedule, or behind schedule. They're back on schedule now, according to VDOT as of our meeting yesterday. Yes, sir.
The black line is actual.
Actual, that's correct.
Okay.
The red line is 10% below, and the green is the planned schedule. Here is to the left is kind of a drone picture of the flyover. If you're looking at the picture in front of me, this is the eastbound lane, and that's the median is there. That's where they're going to open up the that extra lane. This section here, that's actually they've already started covering that. That's the low density cellular concrete that they've put in. And the picture to the right is just deck work. They're preparing the in-place forms so they can start pouring concrete. They're hopeful that they can start pouring concrete next week. I'm not a concrete expert, but VDOT, I did ask VDOT about the temperature, and they felt like next week the temperature probably will be enough that they'd be comfortable with them pouring. I'm not a concrete expert, so I have to take their opinion on that. So next I want to talk a little bit about Cell 7 construction progress. We've got a couple of issues that I want to bring to your attention. I'm going to come back to this slide. This was a drone picture from looking kind of off of 58 near where the flyover is. So Ryan is moving forward very well with the contract, with the construction of the cell. and they're on schedule, no issues. There are some issues with a couple of areas in the picture that I'm going to show you. I'm going to go back to this picture to show you, and I'm using a pointer to this slide over here, so if you can turn around. There's a sediment basin that's here and along this area. You can see this area here, that's water standing, and there's also water standing in this area. They call this sediment basin A, and they call this section sediment basin B. They've done everything they can do to dry that area up, but this corner of the property seems to be one of the wettest locations on the property. And they don't feel like they're going to be able to get this dry enough to be able to even drive trucks across it. And that's a roadway and a berm for construction. So this section here, sediment basin A, they feel like if they hold off a little while, that's going to dry up enough that they'll be able to do their work and proceed forward. Sediment basin B is a whole different story. They provided us our engineering firm, SCS, and Keith is here to talk about this if we need to. But they want to dig the dirt out of there, put a geomembrane down, and then fill that with some A21, I believe. Is that not where we are now? A21 stone, to try to dry that area up so they can actually drive on it. The price that they've given us is $658,000. That's 3% of the total value of the contract. Change order is as below the threshold that requires board approval. That's at 10% of the project cost. However, it exceeds the $100,000 spending threshold of the executive director. So I've talked to council, and council said this does not take board approval, but I wanted to make sure that you all knew that there was a change order in the amount of $658,000 coming forward to dry up that area so we could continue work. I'll be glad to try to answer any questions. Keith from SCS, Keith Madison from SCS Engineers, is here to answer any technical questions, and Norman has been working very closely with the contractor and can also assist in answering any questions you might have on this. Are there any questions? I'd ask some of the engineers, the road traffic engineers, and that's something that you find very often. You've done a lot of work in wetlands, I know, LJ, so we understand that this is pretty commonplace when you get in this type of soil.
Yeah, we had a similar project at NIMO 7 out near Sandbridge, where they just have recently done some expansion into the wetlands. I don't know that they excavated a bunch of soil, though. I was trying to think. That's what as you were talking about that, I think they kind of went back in and put some membrane down first, and then put material on top, and then another Could be mistaken. It might be more expensive to do it that way. I certainly yield to the folks that are looking at the actual.
We did some geotesting. Keith, can you come to the microphone up here, please? We did some geotesting previous to this, and there were issues, and that's their recommendation because of the issues with the peat, the level of peat in that area, that they didn't feel like it would dry up. Is that accurate? I was talking about geotesting that was done ahead of that to understand what the soil was there, and there was a lot of peat in that area, is why they're recommending removal of that soil and putting a geomembrane down and then coming back with A21. Turn your mic on, please.
Is that on now?
Yes.
Okay. It's actually more of a bridging exercise where we put layers of geomembrane, A21, as Dennis mentioned, and we're attempting not to really dry it out, but just bridge over
I certainly am going to yield to the folks that have actually been on site and done the analysis. But you're right, it is common for our area.
So I just wanted to really make you aware of this because it was $658,000 expenditure and our threshold is $100,000. But when you approve the original budget, that included approval for change orders up to the 10% range. So we're well within that range. I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of where we were. Are there any further questions? Thank you, Keith. We have received a draft cell 5 and 6 analysis for airspace analysis for the year. And I think there's a lot on this chart, but what's important is this 12/10/2024 line, and looking at this number, the permitted remaining years of cell 7 is 0.69 years, meaning that in August of this year, the permitted capacity in cell 7 is going to be reached. That's why it's so important for the flyover to stay on schedule and for cell 7 construction to stay on schedule. You know, we've timed this thinking we had plenty of time, but then with the situation that occurred with Wheelabrator, it kind of put us in a tailspin, and we're really we're close to achieving this within the permitted time frame, which is August 18th of 2026. But keep in mind, we've also have a permit modification in that would extend the life of the cell 5 and 6 by 2.85 years. That's the slope changes that we made and the removal of soil that was put in as part of a project when the tunnel was made. That would give us capacity through in cell 7 through October of 2028. But that's not a done deal yet. We're still waiting on approval. We feel certain that DEQ is going to approve it. They pretty much told us they were going to approve it. There's a public process that we have to go through, but we feel good about getting that approval. But right now, where we stand, in August of this year, cell 6 and 7 are going to be at capacity if we don't get that permit previous to that. So I don't want to alarm you, but I want to make you aware of where we are. We feel comfortable about the permit expansion permit or modification to our permit to allow the expansion that would give us more capacity in that. Also, we're looking at completion of cells 7 previous to that date, so we'll be able to begin to put fluff in that almost immediately. So I think we're in good shape, but it's tight. The time frame is very tight. Once this comes out of draft, we've reviewed it, we've made a couple of comments. We don't feel like these numbers are going to change a lot, but once it's done, I'll give you a full breakdown of the airspace analysis, just like how you do every year. But I thought it was important to get this to you now.
So for the benefit of our newer board members, this running up against actual landfill space that was, and with the failure, the abrupt failure of Wheelabrator and the abrupt decision by the Navy to just stop buying steam, starting that process in a downward spiral. We were really up against the wall in landfill capacity, and thanks to the efforts of the staff and the engineers, they figured out how to be able to put more waste into cells 5 and 6. If we get that permit, as you can see, it gives us a little bit more breathing space. But that also, then you had cell 7, which was being driven by the flyover because cell 7 couldn't go into operation until the flyover was in operation. And of course, there were so many uncertainties with the flyover, timing, inflation, all kinds of things. And you see the kind of things that, again, this is for the benefit of our newer board members. All the existing board members have lived this for the last several years. And then you wrap in the permits for cells 8 and 9 being the last ones that will ever be issued. And before the advanced waste disposal contract, we had, if all of that worked out, we had a 35-year life to our landfill, which I think everybody agrees is in government time is a little bit of a short period. With the advanced waste disposal, we are looking to take that to 70 years or more. So it gives us quite a bit of additional landfill space for the region. And that gives you an idea what has really been driving the board and the decisions it's made. Again, this is all just for the benefit of our new board members and help orient you as to what the past has been like. Thank you.
And while, as I said earlier, this bottom line, 12/10/2024, the 12/10/2025 is what I want you to focus on. I put all the other numbers on here because we do a quarterly, the DEQ regulations require an annual airspace analysis, but we fly a drone, and that information that we gather from the drone gets sent over to SES, and we have them doing quarterly analysis now, so we can, number one, make sure we know how much airspace we have left, but number two, it's important is this operational waste density line is important. You want to be around 1,400 at a minimum. As you can see, we stay there, and that gives us some idea of how well our operators are compacting waste. Are they doing the best they can? You can continue to compact waste where it's not valuable anymore because it costs you more in fuel, then it's even worse. So 1,400 is kind of the magic benchmark number, and you can see that we stayed close to that throughout the process. Next thing I want to bring to you is update on the Portsmouth Transfer Station. The facility itself is just over 160,000 square feet, and it's on a 22-acre site. The facility is currently permitted under PBR at 2,500 tons per day with a 2,500-ton storage capacity. The facility we had scheduled all along for the facility to open on July 1 of 2026. But we got our permit and we opened that back in December, started taking Portsmouth waste at that facility. Part of the reason why we were taking the waste in December was because the RDS facility where Portsmouth waste was going shut down for increased capacity and changes that they made in the operating system. They could not take that waste to that location. We had the permit, we opened the facility, we've been taking their waste ever since. 4 additional positions are really needed to operate that transfer station, and they were planned all along, and we had brought this to the board previously to be in the upcoming budget. But a request, we'll come back to you next board meeting in February with a request to go ahead and include those additional 4 positions with a plan to fund them throughout the remainder of this year, because currently we're pulling from all of the other transfer stations to provide personnel to operate the Portsmouth transfer station. So this was a planned expense in 27. It's just that we opened the facility earlier than we anticipated. So we'll be coming back to you asking for an additional 4 positions that we would have otherwise asked for in the budget cycle. I just want to make you aware of that and want to make sure that we had time to discuss. Anybody had any questions? December municipal tons are back up where they should be. We brought in 40,000, just 40,500 tons of municipal solid waste in December. Commercial tons are still a little bit low, but part of that is due to the transition at RDS. So we understand where that is, and we're working to try to make some adjustments to get that number back up now. We brought in 23,000 tons of commercial waste in December. This chart shows, first of all, the budgeted line is the yellow line. That's the number of municipal tons that we budgeted for throughout the year. And as you can see, the blue line, as long as we stay blue above the yellow, we're above what our budgeted number of tons were. And actually, we're going to well exceed the number of tons that we budgeted for this year if we stay on the same path. Commercial tons, we were doing well at the beginning of the year, and we kind of matched out now to what the budgeted number is to what we've actually brought in. And again, we're working feverishly now to try to increase those commercial tons so we can get above that yellow line again. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to CFO Sandy for our January financial report.
Good morning. We're halfway through the year, so overall, for quarters 1 and 2 of FY '26, we ended up with $28.2 million in revenue. You can see 15.6 of that was tipping fees, municipal tipping fees. Other revenue is a little bit higher than the 50% of budget where we normally would be. And that category, there's not really any big significant thing, it's just a combination, but there is interest income rolls into that line, and some charges for extended hours at the transfer stations go into that line. So the combination of those things being higher than what was budgeted is what.
Gas revenue.
Yes, and gas revenue is in there too. But overall, we are at 52.9% of revenue for the year. The current, well, Dennis just talked about, but municipal tonnages are higher than where we were in the same period last fiscal year. So that's about 372,000 additional revenue than where we were last year at this time. Overall, year-to-date expenditures, we're at 23.5 million, which is 48% of the budget. Our operating expenses are slightly high due to the cost that Dennis was talking about with the leachate evaporator. So even though this line is high, there are some savings in transportation costs, which are part of the salary numbers. It's just harder, you don't see those on a line by itself, the savings. Revenues versus expenditures, we are at 5.6 million. Total capital expenditures year-to-date was 17.4 million, and of that, 15 million was projects rolled from previous years, which is mostly flyover landfill projects, and 2.3 million was in the current year's budget. And then just to update you on the flyover financials, where we are so far, we have spent 22.9 million, which we're just about at 50% of the total cost, and another 23.5 to spend to be at the full projected amount. Cash balances, we have 24.7 million set aside for landfill closure and post-closure, which of course this number, Dennis was talking about the need to increase the reserves. This number will go up with the additional cells. We'll be required to keep more set aside for that. 31.2 for landfill expansion and flyover. We were, at the end of December, we had another almost 300,000 to pay for the evaporator, but we have made that payment in January, so that is finalized. We have 138,000 in purchase orders rolled from last year, and 3.9 in the undesignated funds. Landfill expansion update, total, Dennis touched on this a little bit, but we've spent in total 17.3 million, and that includes the properties, the wetlands credits, everything that we have spent life to date. And the projected cost of the cell 7 construction is 20.9 million. That's all I have, unless anyone has questions.
I would just add about the 16, about 16.5 million is the number we're chasing to get back to even money on reserves for the increase in the cost of permitting cells 8 and 9. Some of that we've already recovered from last year, and this year we have put money aside in the budget to, not about $9 million that will be going in that fund this year out of the operating budget. So we have a plan to get there, but I just wanted you to know that's the number that we're chasing. It's just about 16.5 million.
Are there any questions or discussions Questions of the staff? Mr. Broad, are you still here?
Yes.
Okay. Well, if there aren't any additional discussions, I would entertain a motion and a second to approve the quarterly financial report as presented. We have I have a motion by Mr. Sori, second by Mr. Hanson. Any additional discussions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Mr. Broad?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion's carried. At that point, this might be a record for the shortest board meeting ever, but is there any business anybody would like to bring to the board? Any issues that new board members have questions you'd like to ask? Save it all for the orientation next month? Okay, well, yes.
I might make one recommendation. I know as we get close to budget time, we'll be talking more about where we stand in terms of these capital projects. Does it maybe make sense to have maybe a breakout session just to talk about where we stand on each one of them? I think it's probably a little premature because you're just still wrapping up the leachate. We're still wrapping up the permit. There's still some stuff to close out, but maybe March, April timeframe?
Okay. We had planned to do that. I think the timing was the real issue. But those two projects, we've pretty much closed out the permitting of cells 8 and 9 at this point. We do have one more expenditure, and that's for the Virginia Outdoor Foundation payment for the open space easement. Also, we've got the payment from HRSD has still not come in. They've reassured us that they've sent it, and we just haven't received it yet. So once those two things happen, we'll have all of those two projects. But both those two projects will be completed, and we'll have a full understanding.
Thank you. I think I'd like
that's a
to
good
just see a
idea.
breakout for the capital stuff so that we have an opportunity to talk about that separate and apart from where the operating budget is and what we're. Thank you.
For again, the education of our new board members, years ago, a decade ago or so, the SPSA organization got into some serious problems with debt, mishandling debt, misusing debt. And so at this point in time, SPSA does not issue bonds for these, what I'll call lumpy capital projects. What we do is we actually accumulate the funds in advance and then basically pay cash. There are times where even I have questioned whether or not we should move back into operate more like some of the cities where we would have sell bonds for some of these lumpy projects. There's pros and cons both ways. One of the biggest issues is that the organization doesn't have a perpetual existence. At the time the decision was made to not have any more debt, we only had a 10-year life of the organization. Now, as of last month, the organization has signed, all 8 members signed up for another 20 years. But in terms of selling debt and bonds, that's really kind of the minimum amount of time, and that 20 becomes 19 in 1 year and then 18, and quite often bondholders want to know that an organization is going to be around. So it is something to be thinking about and talking about, but right now you'll see a lot of our finances driven by the fact that we actually accumulate funds in reserve in advance of these lumpy capital cash outlays. And again, staff's handling it pretty well, and it served us pretty well, but just wanted everybody to understand that's how we operate and what the reasons why. Any other business to bring before the board? Well, if not, meeting adjourned.